Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Therese Butler, and I'm the Senior Vice President of our Homeowners Association. Before we begin today's presentation, I ask you to do a couple things. First of all, if you haven't already muted your phone or turned it off, please do so now. Checking my own to make sure that I'm not going to be the culprit whose phone is going to ring. Secondly, I'd like to remind you that by tomorrow afternoon, a copy of this presentation will be on the HOA2 website. You'll be able to actually review it, go back over any of the portions of the document that you'd like. And I mentioned that, is that better? Yeah. And I mentioned that because you don't have to try and copy down all the information this afternoon. You'll be able to take your time over the next week or two, 3 weeks, however long you want, to actually go over the information. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to all of the individuals who have donated and devoted so much of their time to this effort. First of all, the Golf Task Force members. Here today from the Golf Task Force are Susan Richards, John Michaels, Manny Medeiros, thank you. I've seen it, but I just had one of those Saddlebrook moments. Joyce Howard, Byron Cotter, Rick Cole, and absent is Tim Butler and Mike Brenny. And Mike, if you're listening, I so apologize for not having mentioned you this morning. I was just in a rush to get moving and I completely forgot. For those of you who don't know Mike, he was co-chair of this committee and spent many, many hours working on this for us. And he really wanted to be here today, actually wanted to be here for all of these. But unbeknownst to him, this is his 70th birthday. And his kids in California planned a big surprise party for him, including some other kids flying in from somewhere else. One of his kids not even delaying her trip to Italy by a day. So he tried to stay here, and finally his wife had to say, "You're going." And that's all there is to it. So anyway, Mike, once again, great apologies for not mentioning you this morning. Secondly, the other group that I'd like to mention is the Transition Negotiation Committee. And those members are Vince Gwizdowski, Diane Ashby, and Bob Kalinda, as well as myself. Once the Golf Task Force completed all of their analyses on the golf course, they gave this information to the Transition Negotiation Committee. And the committee then took the information and carried it into golf course negotiations with Saddlebrook Development Company and Saddlebrook Utilities. And now we'll move on to today's agenda. Actually, I want to mention one thing. I just talked about we went into negotiations with Saddlebrook Development Company and Saddlebrook Utilities. What we're trying to do, and what I've been asked to do by the Chief Counsel at RCI, is to distinguish those two entities, because we all just refer to the developer as RCI, but Mr. Robeson actually has a couple hundred corporations. And the corporation specific to what we're dealing with here is Saddlebrook Development Company and Saddlebrook Utilities. Now because I always just use the term RCI, may accidentally fall back into that today, but really these are the two entities we're talking about. So now we'll move on to today's agenda. So what will we be covering? First of all, we'll give you a description of what's for sale. We'll describe why to consider the sale. We'll present the negotiated terms and conditions. Do an overview of financials, both historical and future projections going out 5 years. We'll make recommendations. We'll overview the pros and cons, present a timeline for moving forward, and then we'll hold a Q&A session. At this time, I'm going to ask you to hold all of your questions until the Q&A session, as I believe that as the presentation continues this afternoon, many of your questions will be answered as we move forward. For whatever reasons, whether to purchase or not purchase the golf courses is an emotional issue. As we cover the information in today's presentation, I ask that you try to listen to the presentation with an open mind to everything that's presented so that you will have all the information that you need in order to make an informed decision. And remember, it will be your decision as to whether or not we acquire these golf courses. So let's go on. What is for sale? First of all, the Preserve and Mountain View golf courses, approximately 363 acres of land. 2 golf course maintenance facilities. All golf course maintenance equipment, and we will mention that the majority of it is old and needs to be replaced and is budgeted in our future projections. And all golf carts. So why consider the purchase? There are probably some of you who question why we would even consider purchasing, and we'd like to give you some reasons for that. First of all, to maintain home values in our community. Secondly, to control 73% of the entire green space in SBHOA 2 in our community with its overall ambience and lifestyle opportunities. Now, I want to make sure you understand, we're not talking about 73% of all the land in our community, because our homes make up the greater portion of that. But for that portion of our community that we call green space, those 2 golf courses make up approximately 73% of that area. And another reason, to maintain the viability of the golf courses is an amenity for marketing Saddlebrook 2 as a premier active adult community. Now, a little later in the presentation, I'll present information that describes the impacts associated with each of these factors. But once again, why is this important to consider the purchase? I just mentioned in the previous slide how much the golf courses play into the overall green space in our community. If you recall, in April of 2015, we conducted a survey in preparation of our strategic plan. We had over 2,800 respondents to that survey, which represents more than 54% of all the homes in HOA 2. This response rate is incredibly huge. I studied research methodologies in college, and you were lucky if you got anywhere from a 28 to 32% response rate on any survey. That was considered good. So when you know that a response rate has over 54%, what that means is the people in this community care. They care about who we are, what we are, and where we're going in the future. One of the questions had to do with the relative importance of the golf courses in our community. Of all the respondents, 88% thought that value, beautiful views, lifestyle, and long-term viability are important to Saddlebrook 2, and that the golf courses play an important role in that. And this was before we even had the realization that these golf courses represent almost 73% of our green space. The negotiated terms and conditions. The next portion of the presentation will cover the actual terms of the potential acquisition. Keep in mind, as we go through these negotiated terms, that the Transition Negotiation Committee was looking at the needs of the entire community during the negotiations to try and provide value to all of us. This will become clearer as we proceed. However, during the last several months when we've been trying to give you updates as to where we are in our negotiations, we've explained that the biggest factor to negotiate was a water agreement. So the first thing we're going to do is focus on why that was so important and how we negotiated the terms for water. So what is the water issue? First of all, water is the second largest expense in running a golf course. The only expense greater than water in the golf course costs or expenses is labor. There are two types of water. We have potable water and effluent. Potable is drinking water, and effluent is treated wastewater that is suitable for golf course irrigation. Saddlebrook Utility Company is the supplier for both types of water for our communities. Depending on where you live in Saddlebrook, you recognize them as Lago del Oro Water Company, Saddlebrook Utilities, and Ridgeview Utilities. Potable is much more expensive than effluent at the preserve due to additional regulatory fees that it incurs. The area known as the preserve, both the golf courses and the residential areas, fall under the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District, which we call KGRD. It's less of a mouthful. And which isn't in, and this KGRD, this district was not in effect when the Mountain View Golf Course was being built or the remaining areas of SBHOA2. So the only areas affected by KGRD are the preserve residential areas and the golf course. Historically, it's been extremely difficult to get effluent to the preserve. However, effluent water does not incur KGRD fees, and it is vital to the economic stability of the preserve golf course. We have a white paper on our website, it will be up tomorrow, that goes into more detail to provide an explanation of how the district assumes such a vital role in the costs for water. It's a very comprehensive analysis. There are over 4 government state regulatory agencies involved, and there are numerous caveats. So if we had tried to present all that information to you today, I guarantee I would have lost you, because it took me I don't know how long to finally go through those documents and figure them out. So anyway, there is a white paper there if you'd like to review it further. So what is the water solution? Well, Saddlebrook Development and utility companies have agreed to install and pay for a new pipeline to get all possible effluent to the preserve. It's estimated that the pipeline will cost Saddlebrook Utility Company approximately $700,000 to build, own and maintain it for the life of the preserve golf course. I should mention there is a small pipeline, a small effluent pipeline that currently makes its way up to the preserve, but it is inadequate to meet the needs of the amount of effluent that we need to have go up there. The pipeline will reduce annual water regulatory fees by approximately $150,000 at present time, and even greater amounts in outlying years. Now, one thing I would like to mention for those of you who are financial analysts, and when you go to look at possibly the historical financials and then the projected financials, you will not find these water costs in the area called water. And the reason for that is KGRD fees are paid in arrears. So you pay them a year after you've used all the potable water you're going to use that year, and it's actually on your property tax bill. So when you go to look for it, if you're going to study that closely, you have to look in that area called property taxes. What I have to say is that if we had not been able to negotiate a solution to the water issue, we would not have been able to move forward with the best interests of the association, and we would not be here today. It's absolutely that critical. So the negotiated terms, what are they? Well, as I previously mentioned, you'll receive 2 golf courses. Go back. Oh, man. I didn't want you to see all that yet. It's too exciting. Excuse me. All right. All the golf course maintenance equipment and all the golf carts. In addition, you also receive deeds to the existing Ridgeview pickleball court land and the land adjacent to it to build 6 to 8 additional pickleball courts. In addition, the preserve golf course will be guaranteed 100% of all available effluent that it can use. And ownership will occur concurrently with transition. That just means we aren't going to take ownership of the golf courses until the same day or a day later than we actually transition from the developer. Also, RCI has agreed in writing to not vote their lots for this vote. This is a contentious issue for many of our homeowners. Yeah. Heard it at every board meeting for the last year, yeah. Okay. And the Transition Negotiation Committee was able to convince Mr. Robeson that it was not in his best interest to vote his lots. And so he will not be voting his lots. So let's continue with our negotiated terms. So what's the cost to the Homeowners Association? It's $2 million due at transfer of title. The $2 million baseline was a non-negotiable price as far as RCI was concerned. We tried, they would not budge off that number. So based on this realization, the technology, that was my background, technology, so I keep trying to say that instead of Transition Negotiating Committee. We worked to reduce the impact of the amount by acquiring assets to offset this figure. So what did we do? First of all, we negotiated the pipeline construction. That could have gone either way, who would pay for that, and we convinced RCI that was their responsibility. Secondly, if we purchase the golf courses, we don't have to relocate our common areas maintenance yard, which is co-located in the Mountain View Golf Courses Common Areas Facilities yard. In other words, right now we share that location, but if we don't purchase the golf courses, then we're going to have to vacate that area, because if we don't purchase them, they will be sold to a third party. That is their intent. And a third party is not going to allow us to co-share their areas. For those of you who aren't aware, about the only available land that makes sense to build a common areas maintenance yard is the land that we're going to be acquiring to build additional pickleball courts. So it goes hand in hand. If we don't purchase the golf courses, there won't be land available to build additional pickleball courts. The deeded land that he is willing to turn over to us is approximately 4 acres. In this area, undeveloped land runs about $40,000 an acre. So our estimates are very conservative because these 4 acres are actually developed. They have electrical, they have sewage, and they have water. So, what's the bottom line? We looked at this as a net acquisition cost of $890,000. And not included in that is the fact that we'll be saving water fees associated with the course or with the preserve course at approximately $150,000 a year. I'll walk you through the footnotes at the bottom, which try and explain how we get to that $890,000. First of all, the $2 million baseline cost, which we said was non-negotiable. Secondly, we did negotiate that they would build that $700,000 pipeline. Secondly, they're giving us the land worth at least $160,000 for pickleball. Thirdly, by not having to build a new common areas facility, we save $250,000. The net result is $890,000 cost. Each of these golf courses cost between $6 to $8 million to build. So for $2 million, we're getting a $12 to $16 million development. So how would we fund this? Where are we going to get the money? First of all, after much analysis, we've decided that we would borrow $2 million from our reserve fund to fund the purchase. We'd repay that $2 million over 20 years at $100,000 a year. This ensures that future homeowners pay their share for the courses. Everybody who's going to enjoy that green space is going to be responsible for helping to pay for it. Analysis by our financial analysis team, as well as our finance committee, show that we would not have a negative impact on reserves during that 20-year period if we borrow the $2 million right now. So why would we borrow from our reserves or from ourselves? First of all, our CC&Rs, our governing documents, only allow for very conservative investments on our reserve funds. In 2016, our returns on almost $6 million was only $31,000. Yeah. The best business loan available for the HOA is from Mr. Robeson himself at prime plus 1%. And a carry of no more than 5 to 7 years on $1 million, we still would have had to put $1 million up front at closing. Quite honestly, the HOA saves more money by borrowing interest-free from itself than in obtaining a loan. And that was, like I said, a lot of thought, a lot of analyses went into this. The following benefits weren't part of negotiation, but are additional benefits that would occur if we acquire the golf courses. First of all, the HOA will build a new, smaller pro shop at Mountain View, less than nor no more than 800 square feet. This would go beside the Mesquite patio. It will cost about $150,000 and will be funded by the Community Improvement Fund. That's our CIF fund. We already to date, or by the end of this year, will have enough money in our Community Improvement Fund to pay for this. So there would, once again, no longer be any out-of-pocket expenses to homeowners to do this. The existing pro shop will become additional meeting space. That was another one of the things that survey showed in 2016 is how vital meeting space is. Area to socialize is important to us and what we're lacking. The existing Mesquite Fitness Center, which was slated to become meeting rooms, will actually be enlarged and have a floating wooden floor put in to provide additional dance floor space and an area for post-tournament banquets, which will then give us additional revenues in the F&B area. The Mesquite building will once again become a lively, vital building with marketing appeal. And what we mean by that is right now, if realtors are showing people homes in our community, they are simply bypassing the Mesquite Grill building. It's almost like a ghost town, and they don't want to show that. But with the improvements that we're looking at making, it will, like I said, once again become a very vital, exciting place to be. So the idea behind these moves is twofold. First of all, we're looking to make the golf course operations as efficient as possible. And the trend is really to reduce the size of pro shops. As our manager, Damon Williams, said, you absolutely don't need that kind of inventory in a pro shop anymore. Because between the Steinmarts, the Amazons, and any other way you can purchase, you absolutely are not providing a value in your pro shops. We would still keep some logoed shirts, some logoed visors, golf balls, tees, that type of thing, but we wouldn't have the significant inventory that's now there. One of the reasons that RCI has kept that type of inventory is because if you are a golfer and you play either in tournaments or you do league play on a weekly basis, those people who play, they put extra money in the kitty, and then depending upon how well you do that day, you acquire winnings. Okay, but you don't get cash in hand. What you do is get a winnings card that has a value to it, which you then take to the pro shop and use by buying merchandise. However, and I have to do it that way because the golf courses are separate from the HOA. However, If we own the golf courses, we don't need that type of inventory because your winnings will be able to be used to buy tickets for the Desert View Theater. You'll be able to use it to buy gift cards and use in the restaurants or give to other people. You'll be able to use it to buy fitness class credits, any one of these other areas. And so it truly becomes a win-win. Secondly, we want to do this to once again provide a win-win scenario for all of our homeowners by looking for ways to increase revenues and providing much needed space for socializing. Next, we're going to go into the historical financials. So what was provided to us? RCI provided annual course profit and loss statements from 2011 through 2016 for both the Mountain View and Preserve golf courses. We also received salary information, water usage data, and access to evaluate equipment, structures, and cards. As part of our due diligence effort, we brought in a third party, Borders Golf Group, who is a consultant for golf courses and is a buyer and seller of golf courses. So they were the ones who worked with our golf task force to evaluate the courses, the equipment, the structures, and the cards. Based upon the analysis that was completed, this slide describes the financial analysis that went into showing how Saddlebrook Development Companies did over the last 6 years. As you can see from the slide, 2014, 2015, and 2016 financials were not good news for RCI. Prior to that, they were in the black. However, there are several reasons for this, and they're defined in the footnotes. Time right now to read those footnotes. I know they're a little small, and you may not be able to see them for yourself. Well, in 2014, due to the freezes that were incurred that year, the Preserve Golf Course had to be closed for approximately 5 months so that 6 greens could be reseeded and built. They completely lost them that year. That's 6 years. I mean, that's 5 to 6 months of revenues for lost rounds that they didn't incur or get. I shouldn't say incur. And secondly, the expense of having to redo those greens. Then in 2015, the Mountain View Golf Course was closed for 5+ months to convert those greens to mini verde grass. And that also equated to a great loss of revenue, rounds of golf, as well as the additional expense to reseed all of those greens. Then in 2016, as RCI, Saddlebrook Development Companies was getting ready to put the golf courses up for sale, they've been doing a lot of work on the backside, a lot of operational work in order to prepare for getting these golf courses to the point where if we didn't buy them, somebody else would be able to. So in addition to spending money there, they also, due to adverse weather conditions last August, or September, they had to oversee the Preserve Golf Course 3 times. A conservative cost for having to do that is $90,000. So you can see that, especially these last couple years when they've had to close the golf courses for as long as they have, if you're not playing rounds, if you don't have people paying greens fees, you're not going to make money. Now we'll discuss our financial projections for the next 5 years. Am I going at an okay pace? Is this okay? Thank you. I've been told sometimes that when I get excited, I just talk a little too fast, and they told me, tone it down, Therese, so I'm trying to. Thank you. So there is a different philosophy between an HOA owning golf courses and a developer owning golf courses. Specifically, a developer builds and owns golf courses for only one reason: to sell homes. That is flat out the only reason they have golf courses. However, an HOA owns golf courses for several reasons, but we definitely are more interested in operating them in a fiscally prudent manner. And we'll outline the following strategies to show you how we will recover from the downward trend that RCI has been, Saddlebrook Development Company has been facing. First of all, a strong marketing plan. As it is today, RCI does not market at all. Secondly, sound management strategies. Third, operational expense management. No! I guess I must be putting my finger on all that strength work I do in the gym. Okay. And the fourth is water savings. The bottom line is that with targeted marketing and efficient operational strategies, the year-to-year financials of owning these golf courses can change dramatically and change to the good. I'll now spend a little time on each of the first three strategies to let you know what's encompassed in them. We don't need to go over water savings because we did that already. The first strategy is marketing. Our general manager, along with members of the Golf Task Force and the Transition Negotiating Committee, spent 2 solid days with Borders Golf Group to develop a comprehensive, sound marketing report, which will also be available on our website for your review. Some of the elements of that report were to create a welcoming professional environment, something it's really not known for today. Develop a focused professional management team. In other words, we will have a management team for the golf course that is devoted to only 2 golf courses. They will not have to be interested in what else is going on in all of the RCI communities and have to split time between all those entities. It will truly be a focused team. Third, we'll improve course conditions by providing new equipment and attention to detail. We'll also keep the courses semi-private with residents having priority. And one of the things that Borders Golf pointed out to us is that there really is a beauty and a marketing edge to owning 2 courses, particularly if you're trying to meet the needs of your own community and make sure that the golfers in your own community are receiving priority over the outside. The outside play is important. It helps to reduce costs. We need the revenues. However, with 2 golf courses, there's always going to be one golf course that will truly be available only to our homeowners to play. In other words, if we were able to go out and market and get a tournament at one of the golf courses, the other tournament that day will be completely open. And some of these communities that only have one golf course can't do that. If they market and bring a tournament in, the golfers of that community don't get to golf that day. So it's a big plus. Also, we will market the golf course experience of Saddlebrook to only Saddlebrook residents and targeted outside individuals and golf groups. In other words, we really don't want to inundate this course with outside play, but there are specific small markets where we could go to that would help increase our revenues. In addition, the report contains numerous options for improving revenues. The options that have been embraced for immediate implementation are included in the financials of the marketing report and provide the framework for a marketing plan. And so if you go to look at the marketing report, you'll see that there are numerous options for ways of increasing revenues. However, the team knows we can't implement all of those at one time. And so we need to start with those that we think are the low-hanging fruit. Where are we going to get the biggest bang for the buck? Also, though, the task force and the negotiating committee said, let's be realistic. Let's not even think that in year 1 we're going to get any of these or the most of these these revenues because we need time to build our golf courses back up to where they need to be. The other beauty of it is that with all of these multiple options, there's not just this one big revenue source you're looking at to try and increase revenues. One of the ideas might be a $10,000 a year generator, one might be 15, one might be 40. So there's multiple ways to increase revenues. And by having so many options, even if you think you have a good one and you go out and you market that, if that one doesn't work, you say, okay, well, let's try this other one then. So we're going to leave marketing, and now we're going to move to the management team, the strong professional management team. What we have on the screen now is the organization chart that our director and our golf task force agreed would be the best fit for our golf courses. What many of you don't know, and what I like to mention, is that you'll see at the top is Damon Williams, our general manager. Damon is in his 22nd year as an active member of the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America. Damon has spent more than 13 years as a golf course superintendent in the Hilton Head regions. In addition, Damon has spent 3 years as the general manager of a homeowners association with 3 18-hole golf courses. This is a tremendous asset for the association. We have somebody at the helm who truly knows the business of golf. So now we'll go into the third strategy, expense management. Before we start, I would say that upon review of the RCI financials, several areas stood out dramatically that could result in immediate impact to expenses. In fact, it was kind of funny when Borders was here and they were going over financials and Damon was in the room, pouring through them, and the golf task force, a couple of them, they were just shaking their heads like, what? Why would you do it this? Anyway, that kind of thing. So they could automatically see things that could change quickly. So we'd improve procedures for maintaining the golf courses, create efficiencies by cross-utilization of both common area and golf course staff and equipment. In other words, if you need to get in an area, and if it makes sense that if you got in there quickly, you got it done quickly and got out, that was the best approach. And since if we do decide to purchase the golf course, we have all the employees, both those that are currently doing common area maintenance as well as golf course staff, you could then move groups from area to area and get a larger bang for the buck. You could also share some equipment. Next, we would align with RCI and Borders Golf for strength of buying power and group discounts. Both RCI and Borders Golf have agreed that we could partake in their purchasing power. And both have agreed that the rebates associated with those kinds of buying groups would come back to us and not stay with them. Then we would modernize the maintenance fleet to reduce maintenance costs and increase efficiency while improving the golf courses. In addition, improvement in current maintenance practices schedules were noted that could also reduce costs. And why would we do this last one, modernize the maintenance fleet? Well, as it stands right now, the equipment is very old and it's inefficient. And the mechanics have to spend so much time trying to keep that equipment running that it's a true waste of manpower. In addition to that, if we had more modern equipment that ran more efficiently and did more multiple jobs than the equipment that we have today, we would not need as much staff to maintain the golf courses as is currently out there today. So the next area we're going to talk about are our operating and capital projections. The projections are based on the analysis of 6 years of the historical data that we have, the known financial trends for our courses, the impact of Prop 206, the Higher Hourly Wages Initiative, which has already impacted our association via a lot of restaurants and common areas crew. Also from input from our consultants, our attorneys, and government agencies. And these projections, as we bring them forward, are based on a 2% year inflation factor. As I mentioned, the next couple of slides are going to show our operating and capital projections and are based on the information on the screen. Before moving forward, though, I'd like to give a quick review to explain the difference between operating and capital expenses. So let's start with operating expenses. Those are monies needed on a day-to-day basis to conduct the operations of a cost center. And in this instance, the cost center is golf courses. However, capital expenses are those monies needed on a non-annual basis to maintain a cost center, such as equipment, golf carts, and irrigation. If you use this analogy for your own home, you know that on a year-to-year basis, you're always going to have utilities to pay, gas to pay, insurance to pay, etc. However, you know that every 15 or 20 years, you're going to have to replace a roof. Every 10 years, you're going to have to work on irrigation. And so you somehow try and budget, and that's why you have savings. So the same kind of, it's the same kind of analogy. Oh, sorry, too soon. One more to cover. So in our HOA, I just want to make the distinction that for our capital expenses that are recurring, we generally fund those from our reserve fund. And every year when you pay your dues, a portion of your dues are going into our reserve fund. And we do that so once again, when it comes time to rebuild the roads in a unit or two, and the cost is going to hit us for $1 million a pop that year, we aren't going to come to you for a special assessment to pay for it. You're building those reserves for those outlying years. So once again, before we show you the projections, we will need to say our projections are estimates only. The baseline scenario reflects the best estimate of our future financial performance. Significant outcomes that could affect actual financial results include the number of annual memberships sold, changes in the number of employees, and increases or decreases in major expenses such as water, equipment rental, seed, fertilizer, gas, and oil. And since projections are based on the future, there will always be factors that will influence their outcome in the future. So here is our baseline scenario for golf operations. Once again, these are the monies needed on a day-to-day or year-to-year basis in order to operate your golf courses. So how did we get these projections? We evaluated current management practices and adjusted them to get to a revenue positive model. And as you can see from this slide, based upon a solid marketing plan, operation expense strategies, experienced management, and water savings, these golf courses can turn around. However, they aren't going to turn around in year one. You won't see it happen in year one. What you will see in year 1 to year 2 to year 3 is a reduction in those expenses. However, by year 4, 2021, we anticipate that these golf courses can once again be in a positive revenue model. And I will admit that these numbers are conservative and realistic. For instance, as I mentioned earlier, in our marketing report, initially we were looking at doing some of the areas that would increase revenues and projecting them in 20 2018. And then we said, no, you know what? 2018 is a rebuild year. 2018 is the year when we actually have to be able to go out and prove to people that we can make this course be a great course. So here are key assumptions for those projections. I'm going to work through this one slowly. There's a lot of numbers up there. I know you're going to want to take a little bit of time to look at them. The first area we're looking to increase revenue is among Saddlebrook residents. And you would say how? And the first thing I would say is that it's time to bring back disgruntled HOA2 golfers. Yeah, some of you know what I'm talking about. What we're talking about here is that over about the last 4 years, over 60 golfers who had annual memberships with our golf courses at approximately $3,200 a pop left and went to HOA 1. And now they're getting their annual memberships there. And most of the reasons is they were disgruntled and unhappy with the management practices under the current management team of those golf courses. We can bring those golfers back. In addition, parts of the marketing plan also talk about the fact that this year, while we projected, how many resales did we project this year? 140? We projected for 2017 140 resales. However, we're way past that in the trend line that we're showing. We're going to be close to 180 to 200 resales. And quite honestly, the people that are buying these resales, these are newly retired people. These are people that have now the energy and the time before they get sucked up in about 20 different clubs in Saddlebrook to actually take the time to play golf. And we will incentivize them. We will possibly offer a discount in their first year of annual memberships. Get them here. Get them building friendships. Get them being part of the golf teams or the golf clubs. And then pretty soon, they're just going to be there year in and year out. Those numbers are very conservative, once again, that we're using. Also, in increased revenue from external sources. Once again, this isn't huge because we're not looking to do that, but there are different ways that we can be bringing in our outside play that would be able to give us additional revenues without actually increasing a lot of the number of rounds that they're playing on our courses. We're also looking at greens fees increases. These amount to 50 cents per round each year for those 5 years. A big money saver is the fact that this next item eliminated amusement tax not under HOA ownership. This is a long way of saying that right now, because RCI, Saddlebrook Development Company, is a for-profit corporation, for every round sold, it's not called a sales tax, it's called an amusement tax, but basically it's the same thing. So they are paying on every round sold this amusement tax to the tune of about $150K a year. Because we are a nonprofit, we will not be paying that, so we will not have to take those revenues and turn them back in to the state. Another area is the decreased maintenance costs. As I mentioned, with more efficient equipment, we can move forward and possibly, less staff and do things much more efficiently. However, there will be some things that are actually going to cost. First of all, if we are going to actually market, that means we have to have a marketing budget. Secondly, although we anticipate having less staff, there still are the effects of Proposition 206, and the full effects of those aren't finally realized all the way until 2020, because there's an uptick every year for the next 4 years. And there would be an increased equipment lease cost. So now let's talk a little bit about the capital items, those ones that we would save for in our reserves. We're talking about in-ground irrigation, maintenance equipment, irrigation pumps and controllers, greens replacement, golf carts, bunkers, and chemical storage and fuel tanks and maintenance building upgrades, to the tune that over about 25 million years, it looks to be about $12 million. That is in current dollars. Similar to our reserve fund for the rest of our homeowners association, we will need to reserve funds for the golf courses. The Golf Task Force recommends funding reserves at $400K per year for the first 10 years, and actually $560 in the first year to cover immediate capital requirements. This provides enough money for big project years without seeking additional funding. It has been modeled out to 25 years, which means some line items are not replaced at all, and others are replaced more than once. So if you take the time to go back and study those capital equipment line items, sometimes you'll look at them and say, gosh, that looks like a lot of money, because sometimes there's 2 life cycles included in that 25 years, and in other times there's not a life cycle included. So, the drum roll. What's the financial impact to each of us as a homeowner? Considering the golf course financial projections and the HOA2 draft 5-year financial plan, the financial impact to homeowners is expected to be the following. In 2018, we see a one-time only special assessment of $185 per household to cover the capital requirements. And what we're saying is that we need to get that new equipment in here, and we need to cover some startup costs. So a special assessment of $185 a household, we can do that. And what will the impact then be on our annual dues? Golf, like any other amenity, will be included in HOA operations and will be another cost center. We anticipate about a 2.8% annual dues increase for the next 5 years to cover everything, including golf. So for those of you who, like me, don't do numbers, what that means is that this estimates or comes out to about a $60 a year increase in your dues each year for the next 5 years. In other words, what you pay today at $1,980, 5 years from now would be $300 more than that at these bumps of $60 a year. Though our 5-year plan is still in draft, we're projecting that an average dues increase of this 2.8% will cover the operational and reserve requirements for our entire HOA community, golf as well as everything else that we're taking care of today, and keep us in good financial standing. The other area where we feel very confident that this is conservative and that the numbers will be no greater than that is that as the 5-year financial projections have been built, both for the entire HOA and for what's been going on in the Golf Task Force, it never takes into account the Community Improvement Fund, our CIF fund. And what I'm saying is that each year the board chooses up ahead of time to say, of all those capital improvement funds that come in through the year, X% we're going to keep in an actual capital improvement account. So that's how we're going to have money to build a smaller golf course. However, the rest will go into the reserves. And what that means is, if it's going into reserves and we're paying for it out of that fund, it's not going to be coming out of your dues. So what we project, what you're seeing here today, is probably the worst case scenario. We'll do the questions and answers afterwards, and you can ask questions. Basically, I will repeat it. We're looking at a one-time $185 special assessment in 2018. Then we're looking at, in our normal annual dues, in 2018, you'll see your dues increase by no more than $60. So that would bring your dues from 1980 to 2040. okay? Then, like I said, I'm not the math person. So then in 2019, your dues would be $2,100. And then the year after that, it would be $2,160. And that's until you get to 5 years. Then we think it'll be very stable at that point. So now we're going to move on to recommendations and rationale. The Golf Task Force and the Transition Negotiation Committee recommend to purchase the golf courses. We recommend this to protect home values, to preserve the community and our green space, to eliminate risks associated with third-party ownership, and to maintain control over a very important amenity. You'll notice that the first bullet mentioned there is to protect home values. And we're now going to present slides that will show how golf course ownership does this. So, consequences of a non-purchase. It would be a significant disadvantage to sell real estate in our community without the assurance that the golf courses would always be maintained. In other words, if people are looking to buy in this community but don't know from day to day who is going to own those golf courses, if it's a third party today, is it still going to be that third party? How well are they going to take care of the courses? It does not help us to sell our homes. In addition, and once again, we keep mentioning third party ownership because RCI has told us they don't want to own the golf courses anymore. They don't need to. They've sold almost everything they have here. Third-party ownership could result in blighted landscape, decreased home values, third-party demand for financial support from the HOA, litigation, and dissension. As I mentioned, we're going to have a number of documents out on the website for you by tomorrow afternoon. Some of these documents, along with all these other documents, we'll have links that you can go to read articles that will show examples of some of these potential issues, actual issues that have happened in other communities. In addition to that, there's also going to be a number of scanned articles that are on the website that also point out historically what's been happening in some of these areas. But right now, we're going to move and show examples in nearby Arizona areas where these situations have actually become a reality. We're going to start with Ahwatukee Lakes. It's located in Phoenix and has a total of approximately 5,200 homes. Their developer closed their course in 2013. The golf course owner is now currently in litigation with the HOA to change the covenants to allow for development on what was once the golf course. It is going through the Arizona court system. It could very well end up in the Arizona Supreme Court sometime this summer. I'm going to show you some slides now of how the course looks 4 years later. This is the green space Ahwatukee Lakes once had. You can see a pond that used to be there. You can see a pond that no longer has a water feature associated with it. And yes, these are facing onto your homes. Kanoa Hills is in Green Valley, which is just south of us, and is an example of an HOA being held hostage by a third-party owner. The course closed in July 2013 due to lack of maintenance from the third-party owner. The third-party owner wanted out. He no longer wanted this golf course. He offered to sell it to the HOA, and the HOA said no. So the third-party owner turned off the water and walked away. Excuse me. So this is what Kanoa Hills, one of their courses, looks like today. These two situations show what could happen to 73% of our HOA's green space. You not only lose the green, but you also get a lot of additional overgrowth. So what's been the impact of these types of situations to a homeowner who lives in a golf course community? Once again, I need to point out that these are realistic and true situations of what happens if golf courses are abandoned or neglected. Residents from Ahwatukee Lakes indicate that home values declined 20% for those who lived on the course and 10% for those who lived off the course. A 2015 study by the University of Nevada suggests that when a course closes, owners who live on the golf course lost $26 to $32 per square foot. On a 2,000 square foot home, that's anywhere from a $52,000 to $64,000 loss on your investment. Studies show that a golf course adds about 10% value to the homes of an off-course home on the golf course. In Saddlebrook, an off-course home is averages to be about 2,300 square feet and sells for about $300,000. So what this represents is a $30,000 loss on your investment. So now we're going to talk about the ROI, the return on your investment. If we talked about how in 5 years from now, we believe the worst case scenario is a $300 increase in your dues, think about the fact that if you lost a $30,000 profit on your home, you would have to have paid that amount in dues for 100 years in order to have had that same loss. Golf course closures have created declining home values in similar communities. Whether the loss in Saddlebrook would be less or more is an unknown. But the reality is it would be a loss. So let's talk about the effects of a purchase versus a non-purchase. First of all, a purchase protects our homeowner values. Secondly, we protect our green space. Once again, that survey showed how important green space is to our belief in the vitality of our community. And golf courses are an important amenity of the Saddlebrook experience. One of the articles that we've scanned and you'll see on your website was one that actually appeared in the Arizona Daily Star a few weeks ago. It was on a weekend and it was in an advertising supplement. But basically the gist of the article was, if you're looking to move into an HOA, how do you find the one that best fits where you want to live? And one of the things that it mentioned that makes an HOA very appealing is when it has lots of amenities. So that if one of you is a golfer, they can go golf. But if you're a pickleballer or you are a swimmer, those amenities are there for you too. And in that article, if you go to look at it, Saddlebrook is mentioned as one of the little gems out there that provides multiple amenities. So it's definitely out there right now as marketing appeal. Once again, we'd acquire even more pickleball courts. We could cross-utilize our golf course lands. For example, many of you who are walkers may currently go over to HOA 1 and walk on their golf courses because that's allowed in non-play times. RCI does not allow that. Saddlebrook Development Company does not allow that today, and so that's an option that would now be available if we owned the courses. We'd be able to do greater marketing in creating golf tournaments with banquets, which would generate more F&B revenues. We'd gain more dance floor space to a smaller pro shop as well as more meeting space. We control our destiny. And you'd have a one-time assessment of $185. What does a non-purchase mean? Potential loss of property value. Third-party control of your green space, 73% of it. Think back to the slides you just saw on Ahwatukee and Kanoa Hills. an immediate outlay of $250K for a common areas maintenance yard that would once again have to go into the areas slated for the pickleball courts, because that's the only viable area to put it. Decreased marketability of the community. And we're going there once again how I talked about it's not as desirable to live in a community if the potential homeowners don't know who's going to be controlling and taking care of those golf courses. Right now, our biggest competitor for home sales is 4 miles up the road. It's called Saddlebrook Ranch. And for the next 15 to 20 years, when people go to buy a home there, they know exactly who's going to own those golf courses and take care of them. That means they have an edge. Potential ransom by third-party owner. On our website, you'll once again see links. It's either the links or the scanned documents. We're getting so much out there, I can't remember. Anyway, I believe it's links to some articles about Skyline Country Club, which is right here in Tucson down the road, and how a third-party owner has now getting from the HOA the monies it wants in order to keep the golf courses green. But even if we don't have this type of a downside, even if we don't have the potential blighted landscape, there is another side of third-party ownership that you need to think about. The priority of an HOA owning it is multifaceted, and once again, our interest would be to keep the courses semi-private, to have them open for our golfers. If a third party owns it, there's no guarantee they're going to do that. They're going to be out there to generate revenues. Revenue means they're going to look for rounds of golf, regardless of whether they're played from people in this community or outside of this community. So you're going to have a lot more people out here playing on your courses. And then RCI would maintain control until they sell it. And it doesn't matter how long they hold on to it or how quickly they can sell it, there will be no cross-utilization on those golf courses. Nobody else is going to accept the liability of having non-golfers on their golf courses. We believe the golf courses are a win-win for our entire community. So what's going to happen now? First of all, this presentation and live streaming, as well as numerous documents relating to the golf courses, will be available tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. on the website. Some of the documents I've already mentioned. We have scanned articles, we have links to articles, we'll have the golf course evaluations done by boarders on both golf courses, we'll have the marketing report, we'll have the 5-year projection annuals, we'll have a white paper on the water issue, as well as the letter of intent. The letter of intent is what has allowed us to get to this point. All of these areas that we've discussed today have been agreed upon by Saddlebrook Development Company and Utilities and this homeowners association. You'll be able to see exactly what we discussed today. It would have been very hard to put that letter of intent in your hands before you actually had an opportunity to hear how this all came about and what it means. It just wouldn't have made as much sense. In addition, if you have additional questions, so we have a Q&A today, and we will be putting an FAQ document on the website. But if you do take the opportunity to peruse some of these documents, if you do have additional questions, you can simply email the golfgtf@saddlebrook2.com. That message will be sent to the subject matter expert, and you will get a response back from them. And then in addition, once again, those questions that frequently appear will go on the FAQ document that will also be available for you to review. In addition, you can use that same email address, and members of the Transition Negotiating Committee and the Golf Task Force will come to your groups, whether it's a unit meeting or if your unit doesn't even have meetings on a normal basis, but you request your unit rep to put one together, we will come there to answer specific questions. If you're the Pickleball Association and now you want to start talking about potentials here, we'll come and answer your questions. Any group will come and answer questions for you. However, if you still have questions after we've gone through all of this, you can attend one of two sessions. We'll go over the most relevant Q&As as well as the feedback received. And they will be Monday, June 26th at 1 p.m. and Tuesday, June 27th at 9 a.m. Similar to the process that we used for ticketing for these 4 town halls, we'll use that same process to ensure we stay within fire code. Right now, we're only looking at having 2 additional town halls on Q&A, but truly, if for some reason these sell out or get close to sell out, we will offer 1 or 2 more sessions. So now we'll talk a little bit about the voting process. To begin with, there will be 1 vote per household for members in good standing. Ballots will be mailed tomorrow on June 16th. The voting packet will include instructions on the ballot itself, a copy of the letter of intent, and a return envelope. And as usual, the return envelope will have a place for you to sign it, as well as put your unit and lot number on it. However, if you are traveling and unable to receive via mail, the ballot and instructions will be available on our website beginning Monday the 19th, or you can email Diane Flores and she will email it back to you. I caution you though, please, if you have any way to get your ballot through the mail, wait for your ballot through the mail. And I mention that because your ballot through the mail contains that very important return envelope that reminds you to sign it and to put your unit and lot number on it. Because if you download it from the website and then just put it in an envelope and you forget to do those 2 processes, your vote is not going to count. And we don't want to see that happen. So like I said, only use this if it's the last ditch effort to get you to get a ballot in your hands. So a little more on the voting process. Ballots can be deposited or will be deposited in the voting box in the Mountain View Clubhouse. That will go out on Monday and will be available until 4 p.m. on July 21st. There's over a month here for you to choose how you're going to vote and get your ballot in. Mailed ballots must be postmarked by July 21st and received by the 28th. Ballots will be counted and the results announced on Monday, July 31st. And the decision will be based on 50% plus 1 of the votes received. Once again, I'd like to remind you, Mr. Robeson will not be voting his lots. And I would like to emphasize that this is our only vote. And if the majority is a no vote, there is not going to be another round of negotiations. If there is a no vote, then we know how we need to move forward with our transition negotiations. And so you need to realize there's no more negotiations after this. So in conclusion, in April of 2016, your fellow residents and the Golf Task Force undertook a monumental effort to research, analyze, and debate the financial impact of owning these 2 golf courses. Then in December of 2016, you elected the Transition Negotiation Committee to carry the interests of the HOA into negotiations with RCI. And as we've tried to emphasize today, we have tried, those of us on this Transition Negotiating Committee, to ensure that we were getting from the value of these golf courses the interests of as many people in this community as we could. The result of the tireless combined efforts is a document called the Letter of Intent, which, as I've mentioned already, outlines the key terms and conditions for the sale of the golf courses. The Golf Task Force and the Transition Negotiating Committee are fully supportive of the acquisition of these golf courses. Let's stay in control of our destiny and vote for the purchase of the courses. Thank you. So we're now going to go into our Q&A session. A couple things. There's microphones available, one at each side of the theater, and I'll be going back and forth between them. There is one question per time at the microphone. After you've had your question answered, if you have more questions, you can simply go to the back of the line and ask your questions after others have had an opportunity. When you ask your question, what's going on? Oh, they've already gone past that. Okay. Once you ask your question, please state your name and your unit and lot number. And there is a 2-minute time limit per each question. Before we actually open the floor up, the people who have come on stage are the members of our Transition Negotiating Committee and the Golf Task Force. They're each going to take a moment right now to tell you a little bit about themselves and what it is that they brought to the table in order to accomplish this task.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Kalinda, and I'm one of the negotiators on the Transition Negotiating Committee, and I'm also one of the 2 people who have gained a great deal of expertise in issues of water. The man to my left has been my Yoda. He has taught me everything I know about water and water issues and water regulatory agencies in this state.
Hi, I'm Rick Cole. I'm on the Gulf Task Force. I was involved in water issues, and I did some work on the financials.
My name is John Michaels. I've been on the Greens Committee almost since the day I came here. It's been a long time, as some of us have been, and also on the Golf Task Force Committee.
Hi, I'm Susan Richards. I worked on the communications and home values.
Good afternoon. I'm Manny Medeiros, Unit 36. I'm on the Golf Task Force, and I've been on the Green Committee since approximately forever, 2007. Oh, yes, and I just reminded by another operations person that I'm in the operations part of this task force.
Hi, I'm Tim Butler, Golf Task Force, Operations Subgroup of the Golf Task Force, and my background was in agriculture. I had 2 degrees in plant science and spent 37 years in the agricultural pest management business.
I'm Diane Ashby. My background is as a university professor and administrator as vice president. I bring administrative and planning expertise. I worked on the Transition Planning Committee here in Saddlebrook, on the Strategic Planning Committee, and now I'm a member of the Transition Negotiating Committee, and today focusing particularly on home values.
I'm Byron Cotter. I'm on the Golf Task Force. I've been working on the finance subgroup. My background is actually research and development management. I have degrees in chemistry, but I also have an MBA degree, so I understand what goes on with numbers.
Hi, I'm Vince Gwizdowski. I'm the HOA VP and Treasurer, and I'm one of, well, I know Byron doesn't golf, and I certainly don't golf, but I know how important it is to our community in the long run. I've got an extensive background in strategy, development, planning, and negotiations, both in the military and with Northrop Grumman Corporation, internationally and domestically.
Hi, I'm Joyce Howard. I am on the Golf Task Force, and I worked on the finance side of things, and that's my background. I am a CPA, and I also worked in the corporate world in financial reporting and planning.
I'm Mike Collins. I'm on the Transition Negotiating Committee. I've also looked at the finance side of things. I have an MBA. I have about 20 years of experience in corporate environment, and I've been on the finance committee the last 6 years.
And I'm Therese Butler, and I'm also on the Transition Negotiating Committee, and I'm the chief herder of cats. And with that, if you have questions, please come to the mic. To the mic. There's a mic over. Okay, we'll start over here with you, Steve.
Tisa Campbell, 45. I just wanted to thank everybody. You did a tremendous job. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you. Okay, your turn, Steve.
My name's Steve Penner, and I'm in Unit 14. And I want to say beforehand, I'm in favor of acquiring a golf course, but I have two problems. How it's being funded, and the amount we're paying for it. And I don't have a question, I just have a couple of comments. First of all, it's being taken out of the reserve for years. And for the record, every time the reserve is stated, it said, these are restricted funds. And then you go and say, it's no impact on the reserve. Well, if we're reducing the reserve from 6 million to 4 million, we were either overfunded and we were given false information that these are restricted funds. And then secondly, I want to comment on the amount. What profit, even based on your numbers going out years, the 25 years, there's going to be a negative cash flow from this operation. What for-profit organization is going to buy a golf course that has no chance of making money? And I just want to comment on HOA One's results. They have an operating profit every year. Over the past 4 years, their negative cash flow has been 1.6 million. Over the next 5 years, it's going to be even greater. So I think when you gave the operating profits, we don't talk about the cash flow. And to pay $2 million for a negative cash flow, I think there's no profit-making organization. These people have probably bought in these communities purchased them probably years ago when golf was on the upswing. Golf is down on downswing, and golf courses are bought on cash flow, not some hypothetical thing.
Thank you. Do you guys anybody want to talk about, I'd like somebody to talk about where golf is in the industry, but where golf is in this community, in an HOA community.
Steve, these are good questions. And quite frankly, I don't know a community that we researched in the strategic plan nor doing the golf task force research that did not have golf as an amenity, as part of their overall amenity program. I know you're talking about an acquisition, whether it's strategic, based on EBIT, earning before income taxes, depreciation. Basically, how do you value a golf course? But at the end of the day, this is valuing an entire community. And for you to say that you know of no corporation to pay $2 million for negative cash flow, I would say that there probably are some corporations out there that have paid for assets that are looking much, much farther down the line. They're few and far between, and I realize that. So, our operating profit, you actually gave us a compliment, the management team a compliment by talking about the operating profit over 4 years, which we've been able to take that CIF money, and rather the operating profit, and move it into the reserves. And to the comment that you made about golf itself in a declining environment, true. On a national scale, golf is declining, but we have the data over the last 2 years, and it will be on the website, that proves without a doubt the golf number of rounds played here over the last 2 years have stabilized. And that's part of the overall calculation. And I know you said you had several comments, but there weren't any questions in there, but there were. And we'd be more than happy to discuss with you on an individual basis, or put our response on the website later on. It's a very complicated issue, but I'm sure we have a few more people who want to say something.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add a comment to that. Steve made the comment that no corporation out there is going to acquire a golf course because it's negative cash flow. Well, the way they turn it into a positive cash flow situation is by coming to the homeowners association and saying, we will let the course go brown unless you give us $500,000 or $1 million a year. That's the business model for third-party ownership.
John?
My name's John Harden, Unit 3281. I'm not a golfer, but I am an architect. And the last time I was involved in the association, which wasn't that many years ago, the Mountain View Golf Course was a non-platted area. It's open development land. Is that still the case? Does anyone know?
It is not platted. It is zoned.
It is zone CR3, which is open space.
Okay, then I will say this. If we do not buy the golf course, and if the subsequent owners go bankrupt, you can look for a developer to come in and put the highest and most profitable units in there that he possibly can. I could easily get 1,500 to 2,000 apartments in there without having to work a lot at it. And you can expect them to be into the HOA because has a lot of power. It's wielded in that case of bankruptcy. So they would probably be included in the HOA too. And if you don't believe me, you can go talk to the bondholders for Chrysler and General Motors in their bankruptcy, which they said was impossible. He couldn't do it. Well, he did it anyhow.
Thank you for your comments, John. Sir?
Yes, my name's Jerry Hack. I'm in Unit 36, Lot 18. I have a question. With water being the biggest component of the golf course, have you guys locked up a long-term contract with Robeson on water supply and pricing?
I'm going to let our water group, and for those of you who maybe didn't hear his question, he said with water being such an important issue, have we worked out a long-term contract or agreement for getting water and the price of the water?
Okay, to answer part of your question, in order for RCI or Saddlebrook Utilities to get a rate increase, they must go before the Arizona Corporation Commission and plead their case, just like electric companies have to do that and so on and so forth. During that process, we, the customers, would also have an opportunity to provide our input. And if, let's say that the ACC does rule in favor of a rate increase for water, we can always appeal that decision as well. In addition, we're really aiming to take care of the preserved course using all effluent. And effluent is not subject to CAGR fees. And effluent right now from the Saddlebrook Utilities Company is charged at 58 cents per 1,000 gallons of water, whereas potable water, depending upon which of the other two water companies is involved, it's either 87 cents per 1,000 gallons or 85 cents per 1,000 gallons. In the letter of intent, we have a guarantee that we will receive all effluent that's produced on a daily basis by the Saddlebrook Utility Company. And that's where we're going to see drastic reduction in the CAGR fees that Therese mentioned earlier.
I would actually mention one other thing too. There's a portion that when a utility company comes into being, they have to go before the Arizona AWR, the Arizona Department of Water Resources.
But that doesn't answer my question. My question is what you say that golf cars, third-party golf course guys can hold you hostage for water. What would stop Robeson from holding us hostage for water?
They can't, because they are a utility company. And where I was going to go with this, as part of becoming the utility company, they had to go before the Thank you. There's just way too many acronyms. And they had to, first of all, provide the hydrologic reports that showed that they had a 100-year level capacity or guarantee for waters. Then, once they proved that to them, they had to go to the Arizona Corporation Commission, upon which they then have to sign documents as they're becoming a utility company that says, basically, They have to provide water to their customers. They cannot withhold water. They're now a public utility. So they cannot, as a utility company, hold us hostage for water. And so if a third party owned us or owned the golf courses, they would always have access to that water. The fact that what they're saying is they don't want to pay for it. So the way they would hold us hostage is by saying, you help HOA pay for it, or I'm not going to water. So that's kind of the scenario.
What kind of pricing did you use in your operating expenses when you ran your financials?
Pricings for water?
Yeah, how'd you use that?
The question was, in your financial models, what pricing did you use for water? Okay, and that's like enough because I've already let you go over one question. Sorry. Okay. Joyce? No, Joyce, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as our assumption for the water, is we did use the existing price structure with the inflation factor of 2% on it, and we also took into consideration the construction of the new pipeline, which would reduce that CAGR fee.
Thank you,
Just
sir.
a reminder, that CAGR fee only applies to the Preserve Golf Course, not the Mountain View.
Sir?
Yes, my name is Bob Kane. I'm in Unit 17. And my question is this, I'm one of the orphans. One of the units that were divorced from HOA 1 to form HOA 2.
And lovingly.
Yeah, true. Everything for us is so far away from us that we use HOA 1 facilities mostly. Anyway, with all of the other facilities that HOA 2 provides, having a cost to the homeowners, including the restaurants, because they can't compete with the outside world. And you're saying that over the next 5 years, the homeowners are going to have to pay approximately $1,085 more than they are today.
No.
$1,085. If you go $60, $120, $180 to a $40, $300 plus $185, you're talking $1,085 total.
Okay, your math is correct, but your assumption is wrong. It is a one-time fee of $185. Stop. For the next 5 years, approximately $60 in dues increase, which will be 5 years to equate to $300. Your number, therefore, is $485.
Wait a minute, wait. No. $485 in year 5.
Your one-time special assessment.
No.
I don't understand what you're
No,
asking.
you said it's going to be $60. Then the next year it'll be $120.
No one said that.
60.
Well,
It's from the base. So your base today is $1,980 if you're an HOA 2 person, right?
Right.
Okay, for 2018, your base will go up $60 to 2040 as your HOA dues for 2018.
Right.
Your one-time assessment on top of that will be $185. Are we clear
Correct.
so far?
Correct.
All right. So now you have a new base of 2040. The next 2019 base will be approximately $60 more to
And
that.
that's what I'm saying. It's $1,085 over 5 years. $1,085.
What you're
over
doing,
5
what you're
years.
doing is you're adding up each year.
I am a CPA. And I can add it in my head. So I know it's $1,085 over 5 years. Now, my addition, the other question then is, does that include the repayment of the capital fund?
Well, the answer to that last question is yes. But I think that what we believe you're doing is you're doing a cumulative to get to the higher numbers.
Yes.
And what we're trying to tell you is this.
Okay, I think that, I know you've tried to explain it, Vince. I think that's the best we can do. I would say, like Vince said, that amounts of money that we're talking about do include the $100,000 a year to repay the reserves.
It does.
Now,
It does include that?
It does.
Yes, it does.
It does.
Okay.
So now I'd like to move to this side for your question, please.
Hello, I'm Jerry Gustafson, Unit 14, Lot 6. Question is, have we gotten an independent appraisal for these properties? If so, what was it? If not, why not? And how can we reconcile this with the Laurel Valley purchase of Elcon recently, for what I understand was virtually next to nothing?
Actually, they paid $15 million, I believe, for those golf. Oh, how much? I can't remember. $1 million.
They paid $1 million. I live on number 13. Those courses may close in the next 6 to 12 months. Oro Valley bought that land for future development of parks. They had no interest in those golf courses. They know nothing about running golf courses, so they hired Troon Golf Management, who probably won't be in there much longer because they've not done a very good job. And I'll say that to a reporter or anybody else, because I'm getting ready to lose $30,000 to $60,000 of my home value. It's that simple. So I'm in this scenario at El Conquistador.
And the person who responded to that was Damon Williams, our general manager.
We did have an assessment done by Borders Report. And Borders came out and said the estimate on revenue was 1 to 2 times, which basically puts that about.
They suggested that we pay $2.8 million for the 2 golf courses.
$2.679 million, and this will be online and you can read the report.
But that was only if we could have a guaranteed water agreement. They understood also that if we couldn't do this water deal, don't even go there. Okay, we just did that side. This side.
Hi, my name is Sandy Mayer. I'm in Unit 25. We're fairly new. We moved in September. So 2 quick comments. One, we moved over from Escondido, California, where a developer bought a country club over there and got mad at the HOA, closed and fenced the golf course, dumped manure, and let it go fallow. So people can't sell their houses. Looks like hell, and they've all lost. Secondly, over the last couple of years when we were looking for a home, if our golf courses, Mountain View Preserve, were not here when I drove down the hill, we would have gone somewhere else. Whether I played golf or not, it's part of our community. It should stay.
I'm a little short for the microphone.
We should probably bring that up closer.
I can just get it there. I'm Jude Holman. I'm Unit 47, and I'll apologize if you had the answer to this question in some documentation we were sent, but I didn't see it. I wondered why was the choice, or why did we have to do the vote now when we have a lower residency here, you know, and more people are back at their summer homes? Why couldn't we wait until we have the maximum residency actually here in Saddlebrook to vote?
Do you want? Okay.
One of the reasons that we had to do it and do it now is because RCI would not have any other transition negotiations with us until the golf course issue was settled. Currently, we pay RCI 4% of our revenue for them to manage this community, basically to do the financials and the HR work and some tech work. So we need to get out from under that as soon as we possibly can, because we could run this place for far fewer dollars than what RCI charges us. So one of the primary reasons to do it now was to keep the other transition negotiations moving along so that hopefully during the course of this calendar year, we will transition from Mr. Robeson.
And I would also, I would also add to that I know that because it gets quiet here, people think that we have this mass exodus. In actuality, if you go look at that strategic or the survey from the strategic plan, that is truly not the case. Maybe a max of 20% of our residents are gone more than 3 months. Mostly what you're seeing in the summer, besides those individuals, is someone's leaving for 3 weeks, someone's leaving for a month, someone's doing this or that. However, we have people that do that all winter and fall too. So the other part is, when do you say it's time to do a vote to bring more people in? Because we have people who come up in October, but we have others who don't show up until after Thanksgiving. Then we have others that wait till the first of the year. There's never a perfect opportunity to do the vote. However, in this day and age, with everything that we have from a technology standpoint, there is no reason, including that we have this on the website, that everybody who is a homeowner, whether you live here or not, or are here or not, you should be able to participate in this vote. And that's the other reason we're putting all this documentation on the website. We want everybody to have equal access to all of this information as well as get their questions answered. Thank you. So what, I was just
Therese,
right.
you know, if I can say one thing, this was not our choice. We don't own the property. We haven't delayed things, okay? Some of us have been doing this for over a year, believe it or not. And this isn't the first time these transition committees have been put together. But some of us have been doing this for over a year. And we, more than anybody, wanted to get it done. But when you deal with RCI, you work on RCI time. And if anybody's had any dealings with them, you know that. And I don't mind putting that on the air. But that's, you know, that's the way it is. And so, you know, we would like to have been done with this a long time ago. My wife would have liked me to be done with this a long time ago.
Thank you. This side.
Hi, Gloria Stewart, Unit 42. First of all, thanks for all the hard work that the committees have done. I mean, I think all of us truly appreciate it. My question is, if the homeowners vote no on the golf courses, how easy would it be for Mr. Robeson to sell HOA to the Mountain View Golf Course immediately to a developer? I know it's platted, but it's not.
No, Mr. Robeson would not do that. And here's why. In our letter of intent, when you get it, you will see that as us being owners of a golf course, we cannot develop that land for anything other than the way it's zoned today. He would put that same caveat on anybody who bought the golf course. And when we asked him, we said, well, why are you putting this caveat on us, for goodness sakes? Of course we're not going to develop the land. And he said, it's something I have to do because I'm willing to sell you this land for $2 million. But let me tell you, if somebody was going to try and develop this land, they aren't going to get it for $2 million. And so he would put that in their agreement also.
But if we don't buy them, he couldn't sell it to a developer for $20 million?
No, he would not do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and part of it is, I should say a couple things. Part of it is the way in our CCRs, how it describes what we own. There's something called implied servitude that our attorneys have talked to us about that would make it virtually, with enough money and energy, anybody I know can try and do anything, but it would make it virtually impossible. Thank you. This side.
Hi, I'm Jean Davenport, Unit 47, and I was just wanted to ask about, you had said in the breakdown of the cost for the 2 million, the application against that was a number of different things, including the pipeline. But you said we were saving 250,000 from the not having to move the maintenance center, and then another you had 160,000 was applied to the 40 acres. So would we incur those costs if we did?
No,
4 acres.
4 acres.
Okay, sorry. Would we incur that? That would be 410. Would we incur the 410,000 if we don't buy the golf course?
Several things. If we don't buy the golf course, well, we're not doing the 700,000. That's just a price coming off. The 250K we would. The 140,000, which is what we put the estimate on for that land. If we don't buy the golf courses, then we go into our transition negotiations. If we don't buy these golf courses and get the land this way, we're not going to get that land for free. I would just say that. I don't believe we would.
Yeah, I'm sure that he would take us to the cleaners if we wanted to buy that land later on.
I think so too, but what I guess I'm trying to say is we're almost at half of your net cost, the 890,000, just with those two items.
Thank you.
Well, as Therese said, part of the negotiating strategy going in was to level set, get something back for that price that he demanded that was non-negotiable. And that was our strategy going forward. And we did the best we could to get to that price. Or that
Steve?
offset.
Steve Hess, Unit 47. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the Golf Task Force and the negotiating team for their diligence, their time, and all their efforts. I think they should be applauded. My question is basically this. I'd like to know, in the analysis which resulted in your assessment as to a special assessment and what the increase in dues would be, was a stress test conducted? In other words, you come up with an assumption that the expenses for the golf course would be so much. I'd like to know, did you factor in, let's say the expenses were 30% higher than what you anticipated, and the number of golf rounds played was, let's say, 20% less than what you had anticipated? What would be the respective impact on homeowners' dues and the special assessment, taking into consideration those stress tester factors? Thank you.
I can speak to the golf operations projections, and what we showed you today was the baseline, which we think is our best estimate, but we did do alternate scenarios, upside and downsides, taking into account things like, what if the water costs were greater? What if we had to hire more people? What if we sold more annual passes? Various costs. And we came up with, I'd say, a reasonable range of about $200,000 up or down from where we are. We think that this is representative of the best case that we would have.
So Joyce, with respect to the $200,000 that you just mentioned, what would that translate into an increase in, let's say, dues?
So the question that Steve had is, based upon that 200K upside versus downside on a stress test, what would that do to dues?
That would come out to about $70.
Additional?
$70 per household.
Up or down?
Up or down.
Up or down?
Yes. Sir?
Evans, Unit 36. Question I have pertains to the initial information that came out that said that Saddlebrook Development would not give us audited financials on the golf course. Is that still true? And if it is, what confidence do we have that those numbers are good?
Can I let Joyce handle that one?
Yes, RCI is a company, as Therese had mentioned earlier. They have hundreds of companies. They are audited on that total basis of consolidating all of those companies. They are not audited on each individual entity, each golf course. So there is no such thing as an audited financial statement for a particular standalone golf course. The whole company is audited, but a particular golf course is not a standalone audit. To do that would be prohibitively expensive, and they refused to do it. So what did we do in order to satisfy ourselves? We took a look at their detailed financial statements. They gave us financial statements for 6 years in detail. We have the golf course maintenance cost center. We have the pro shop cost center. We have the driving range cost center. We have the golf carts cost center. We have each of those by the various line items that they have in there in great detail. And all of that will be available if you want to take a look at it in hard copy. Then we took as well and looked at what they were telling us and compared it to other golf courses to see if it even looked reasonable. And we were able to satisfy ourselves by looking at this detail ourselves, looking at the trends, comparing it to other golf courses, and also asking Borders, the company that came in to take a look at the operations and give us the valuation, to take a look at it as well. So that's basically what we did to assure ourselves that what we had was something that we could trust.
So what confidence level do we have? What percent?
I think that what we have is a reasonable basis to work with. I think it's good data.
This side?
Hi, my name is Sandy Monroe, Unit 46. A letter of intent is not the same thing as a contract. What assurances that can you give to us as homeowners that if we vote that we would like to go ahead and purchase the golf courses and you actually get to the point of preparing a contract, if there are substantial changes in it, how are you going to let us know? What's your response going to be in that regard?
In the letter of intent, when you get it, you'll notice that there's I think it's section 10. Is it section 10? It's section 10, which outlines what the letter of intent does. And basically what it's doing is it's setting the basis for the actual purchase agreement. In the letter of intent, it states that if either side now wants to back away, they can. So what I'm saying is that if RCI or if we, to Saddlebrook Development Company, if either side tries to pull any shenanigans, we can say the deal is off. We will not, as homeowners and trusted members of this community, do anything other than what we've already outlined in this document. Sir?
Alan Moran, Unit 46. This question goes to legal due diligence and potential costs. Is there anything in state, county, or a law or the agreement that RCI had when they bought the land from the state says upon transfer of the property or sale of the property that what's currently a developed golf course on open space has to be then rezoned, replatted, and taxed as a golf course? And what are those costs?
This is a great question because there's so many variable answers to this. It's a bit complex. There is in Pinal County, and we did go to Pinal County to do the research on this, the Mountain View Golf Course currently has a covenant that says that it will remain as a golf course with under the current ownership. But there's a caveat in that particular covenant that releases the old owner from any obligation and passes the obligation to the new owner. The new owner, according to that Pinal County covenant, must continue that particular golf course as a golf course. Now, Tree said it a little bit earlier. That is going to be extraordinarily difficult to change, even if a new owner buys it, because it will require a bunch of regulatory changes at Pinal County. And quite frankly, if a new owner came in, I don't think we, as residents, would want to see condos or different developments or something that falls outside the original covenant. That would end up being a pretty tough legal matter. So that's why I'm saying this is complex. The intention, according to the Pinal County, is that golf course will remain and be operated under CR3 status, which is open space recreation, i.e. a golf course. It is not the case in the preserve. The preserve is zoned as a golf course, and it would take an act of God to get that to change, I'm pretty sure.
So there's no change in the tax status then?
As far as we know, there'd be no change in the tax status, as far as we know. We have talked to tax attorneys, and right now that's the ruling, but we'll wait and see when we actually have ownership. And we've done the due diligence talking to them.
All right, my question, I'm Al Hendricks, Unit 23. In acquiring these golf courses, has anyone give us an estimate of what it would take to bring Mountain View, for example, back into a decent shape? Right now, it's not even a half decent municipal golf course. They have let things go so bad and will the monies that we collect that you're asking us to pay, will that be enough to absorb the cost of fixing these courses back up?
We do have in the 5-year projections, we do have built-in money, especially in the first and second year, for additional upgrades, additional herbicides, additional signage, to do the detail work and to clean the weeds back up. And yes, it'll take a growing season. It'll take a full 12 months to see noticeable improvements, but I've turned several around in my lifetime. It can be done, and those numbers are into the budgets.
And I'm assuming that we will be hiring a new superintendent of greens, because the guy we have now has let it go.
We can't talk about staffing at this point, but all the staff on inside and outside for both golf courses will basically be terminated from Robeson and offered employment with us. And we will interview every single one of them, from the frontline people to the pros to the superintendents. So that's basically the way you do this when you do acquisitions.
I would refer to you that please read the letter of intent that will be online tomorrow. It goes specifically to paragraph 6. It talks specifically about what we negotiated about employees.
And one of the things that when Damon mentioned all employees would be terminated and then they get hired by us, that is in this section 6. And basically what it's referring to is even if we choose to hire some of them, Robeson first has to formally terminate their employment, address any vacation, sick leave, health issues, anything like that, so that when they come to us as employees, it's a clean slate. That's where he's going with the whole terminate and then you So basically in the past, when RCI has done this, there's been 2 tables on the day of ownership. First, they go to the RCI table, they sign their termination documents, they get their packet, their paychecks, whatever else is owed to them. And then if they're going to be rehired, then they go to the next table and sign their documents with the new employer. Yes.
Jerry Schaefer, Unit 42. I used to have a golf course in Florida, and one of my biggest problems I have is I didn't see anything mentioned about liability insurance, which is a big deal on a golf course.
Right.
Did you guys look at that? And by the way, great job. Great presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, we actually got quotes from our insurance agent, and they are in the financials.
Okay.
We got actual liability and also property insurance quotes.
Okay. Yeah, the main thing is, the liability on homeowners around the golf course.
Well, quite frankly, Jerry, it's also potentially homeowners on the golf course as they're walking around enjoying the green space.
But yes, we did have our insurance broker come out, and he extensively rode both courses, looked at all the facilities, the equipment, bridges, cart paths, everything for potential liability issues.
And if we do take control of them, obviously we're gonna have to change some. I mean, you'll see the workers now with their children and the golf carts running around doing maintenance. Definitely a liability problem.
I agree.
Question on this side.
Ed Simprut, Unit 14. How long before this water pipeline for the recycled water is going to be built?
In your letter of intent, and I'll let Rick handle that, but it is addressed in the letter of intent. Or Bob.
It's going right through your driveway, Ed.
No doubt.
Basically, the letter of intent says that the construction of the pipeline will be completed no later than 6 months from the closing date. In addition to that, if they don't finish it in 6 months, there will be a penalty. That penalty will be decided in the sales agreement when we get to that point. So the pipeline will be built no later than 6 months. We're going to certainly, if this is a yes vote, I'll encourage them to start it tomorrow, or when the vote comes in, rather. So that's the answer.
Engineering would have to be done before they could start that. One other question. Once we buy the courses, that becomes an amenity that everybody in the community pays for. We have 3 other amenities that are paid for by the individual club members, like softball, the dog park, and pickleball. Will these amenities be picked up and covered by our homeowner dues in the future?
That will be dependent upon the future board. It's not up to this board. We don't even own it yet.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you, Ed, because I can't speak for a board that doesn't exist.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir?
Steve Saffin, Unit 29. You talked about how you're going to market the golf courses. And you mentioned that it would be semi-private. I know that Saddlebrook 1 is just a private course, and it's not marketed outside of the Saddlebrook HOA. What kind of plans do you have for marketing the Mountain View and the preserve? I know that anybody can use it because it's open to the public. How will it change?
Better. Thanks, Diane.
There is a full marketing plan online, and you should take a look at it, because one of the things it does now that I, as a very casual golfer, will appreciate is be a lot less golf now. We're looking at instead putting our homeowners first, and then marketing for special events that will be high revenue without us selling, essentially giving away golf rounds. If you know how Golf Now works, there's a lot of free rounds that are given away through Golf Now. That's their revenue.
Well, they market the course for you. That's their
don't.
revenue. That's their business plan.
Yeah, it is, but it's not marketed in a way that brings us profit. It brings them profit. Instead of doing that, if you take a look at that marketing report, there are ways in there that are suggesting to market to certain groups, charities, high bang tournaments, and marketing more within Saddlebrook, so that in fact we're bringing more of our homeowners into the course, bringing those new residents into the course. And right now, if I'm a new resident, nobody goes to me and says, hey, how about you come play our golf courses? Let me teach you how to play golf so you can come and play our golf courses. We don't even market internally, let alone externally.
Let me add one more piece about Golf Now. We did the evaluation on the two golf courses, the financial evaluation, and it was just under 5,900 rounds that were not paid for due to Golf Now. That is a loss of income. That's not an incentive to keep
I
Golf
had
Now.
mostly about 40 or 50 of them myself. But that's the only way I could afford to play, because the prices at Saddlebrook 1 are so expensive. And if I don't take a membership over there, then I don't want to be forced to play 3 times a week in order to justify being a member.
Well, let's talk about the approach. Before I hold on, there's a marketing report online, but Damon has a marketing plan that is part of the revenue producing things, which are extracting elements from the report. You will see the whole report.
Couple of things. We will look at different type play card scenarios going forward, so we can grab the casual golfer. Also, in the report, if you'll read, there's a tee sheet utilization on one of the pages, and currently the pro shops close at roughly 3 p.m. The pro shops, if we acquire these, will not close at 3 p.m. We will garner 3 more hours at a minimum of golfers going out. We have looked at things like paying to play 4 holes, paying to play 6 holes, so we'll have some graduated rates in that regard too.
Thank you. Okay, this side.
Yeah, Clay Heffelbauer, Unit 48. Therese, could you go over again what I understood you to say regarding the CIF? The way I understood you to speak is $150,000 would be used for a new pro shop, and the subsequent dollars left over would go into the reserve fund?
No, what I'm saying is, and let me explain that. We started the CIF, it'll be a year in July, and the board decided when it passed that last year we did a 50-50 split for the revenues received in 2016, which means that of all the money we acquired, approximately 66,000 stayed in the CIF fund and 66,000 went into our reserves. I think that's about what it was,
roughly,
right?
yes.
So now, fast forward to this year. This year, the board chose at the beginning of the year to say whatever revenues that we gained from the CIF in 2017, 40% would go into the CIF fund and 60% would go to reserves. So and we're on track right now. We already have something like 70 or 80. 77 resales this year, and we only targeted 140 for the entire year. So it's really going to be higher than we thought in profit. So what we're saying is by the end of this year, of all those monies we acquire this year, 40% will go to CIF, 60% into reserves. So now in the CIF, we have the 66,000 from last year, plus all the revenues from this year. That's going to far exceed $150,000. So we'll pay for the golf course, the smaller pro shop out of that money, and the rest will just remain in the outside CIF fund.
Okay. And one last thing. Regarding the special assessment and the projection of $60 per year on the annual dues, is that the plan to refund the reserve fund, for the $2 million?
Yes, it's part of the
So
whole.
your projections are.
It is covered. It is covered. The 100,000 per year is covered to pay back the loan in the reserve fund.
For each of those years.
Yes.
Yes.
So at the conclusion of 5 years, you have not paid all the money back to reserve.
No, we are spread that out over 20 years.
20 years beyond.
We want to have inclusiveness.
Okay, that's right.
That's the golf portion of the payback. That doesn't include the payback actually from the CIF each year. It's tacked on top of that. So there's a possibility you could pay this loan off way faster than 20 years. The idea is to have people that move in here 10 years from now still have some money in the game, so to speak, and not put the burden on everybody right now.
Sir?
Hi, I'm Jack Hammer from Unit 31. I want to commend all of the people for the hard work and the job that they've done. It's really good. I've sort of gotten a little confused about how you got into deciding to close the Mountain View Pro Shop and build a new one, and because of not needing that space. What's the plan for the Preserve Pro Shop?
The Preserve Pro Shop at this point will stay as it is. We don't intend to build a smaller pro shop at this time.
But we probably won't carry that much inventory.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I don't see anybody else coming up for questions. So thank you very much. As we said, your ballots will be mailed tomorrow. And as they say in Chicago, vote early, vote often. Thank you.